What's going on? You've tuned into the Blue Chip Podcast, a football podcast by fans for fans. I'm Stan Olson, sitting next to Cody Potter, and we're kicking off 2022 draft season with starting off our pod, and we're going to talk about Cody's top 50 big board.
Yeah, we're going to do pretty much my reminiscent of a big board. I think we're going to go over and debate mine. Then I think our next episode idea is to go over Stan's because, of course, we have a difference. You know, every scout has a different eye. You know, everybody has a different rank. Everybody has a different amount of tape that they've watched on each team or each player. So I think it's the easiest way to do, you know, comparisons of big boards or a battle of the big board kind of thing. Yes, I mean, I think my board's going to definitely look a lot different than most pundits.
Before we get started, I just want to ask you one question about how you organize your big board, because everyone obviously probably does theirs a little differently. When you're ranking your players, do you rank them more based off of just pure raw skill, production, and positional value? How do you weigh the three in order to give them a ranking?
I think all of it comes together in a balance. Raw athletic scores definitely comes into it when I look into projecting a player to a team or a coaching staff looking for traits. I mean, that definitely comes into it. Mostly it's the eye. Mostly it's what I see on tape, like the impact. I look at who jumps off the tape, down in and down out, from game 1 to game 7, fourth quarter of games. Who's really like coming out? You know, I tally all that when I'm watching these games on Saturdays. Really, it's the eye mostly. Like I said, you can always see the raw athletic score, you know, jump off the tape. But I mean, just because you're big and athletic doesn't mean that you can tackle or, you know, catch a football when it hits you in your hands. So I think that's definitely incorporated into it. But it's really realistically who logically is going to hit their ceiling for me. I think that's realistically like scheme diverse players. If you're going to be in my top 50, you're going to be diverse.
Right.
You might not be the most technical player at your position, which means, you know, somebody might have a higher grade because they have a lower floor. But, you know, you get this guy who has these raw athletic skills and you put him on the right coaching staff and that guy hits his ceiling. I mean, that's what I'm projecting. I'm always going for the home run. I mean, I want the best player. I want the best players on my team. And if they have the foundations and the fundamentals that I need from a player at that position, but they have skills that they're lacking, I mean, honestly, I feel like I could coach those. Right. So without any more, I mean, I think
We'll start with the first 10 players that you have on your board. And at number 1, you have Kyle Hamilton. And you say versatility. That's about the guy that, you know, you think of in this class. Number 1, Kyle Hamilton, safety, Notre Dame. You also have Aiden Hutchinson at number 2, defensive edge from Michigan. Andrew Booth, 3. Ikem Ekwonu, 4. Ahmad Gardner at number 5. 6 is Kayvon Thibodeau. 7 is Charles Cross. 8, Tyler Linderbaum. 9, Trevor Penning, and 10, Evan Neal.
Yeah, I think this really signifies the narrative of this draft class. If you look at the top 10, you have the freak and Kyle Hamilton, who's just, you know, honestly fits in any scheme. He's gonna be an all-pro talent as long as he's healthy. Aiden Hutchinson, edge. You got Kayvon Thibodeau, edge. You're gonna have a lot of interior D line and edge in my mocks, or, you know, all throughout this all season. Corner, same thing, and then offensive linemen. This draft at the top is loaded with these guys. It's really actually hard to kind of rank them.
Really is, especially I think some of these corners. And you have Andrew Booth at number 3 overall, and he's also your number 1 rated corner. I think we're both very high on Andrew Booth, but I want to know why you like Andrew Booth more than Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley.
He's a
That's
dog.
the consensus top 3, I would say, for the corners, and I feel like Booth is kind of the consensus 3rd with most people, and you have him number 1, and I just want to know what separates him, I guess.
He's a dog. He's definitely a willing tackler. Out of him and Stingley Jr., Stingley actually had some injury concerns, and you know, he hasn't had that freshman tape that he had these last 2 seasons, and part of that can be due to injury. I don't think Booth has even missed a snap. He's definitely a dog. I mean, he's definitely a warrior. He plays through injury because clearly you're going to get dinged up. Realistically, him and Ahmad Gardner are my top 2, and it's very, very close. What separates them for me is that Andrew Booth got challenged.
Yeah.
Every season at Clemson, because you can't really throw away from anybody because Clemson just has that level of talent, and when the ball's in the air, man, he's making plays on his his allowed catches is just crazy. Even though I know Gardner's hasn't allowed a touchdown, man, he also had Kobe Bryant across from him too. That Cincinnati defense.
Cincinnati's defense. I mean, I think that we're going to look at least half a dozen players on that.
Yeah.
On that defense are going to go in
the top 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some good players. Also, I also wanted to ask you about Ekwonu. He's your number 1 rated offensive lineman.
This
separates him from Evan Neal.
This is definitely a projection thing for me. I don't think he's the most polished at anything, but when you look at his size, strength, he does have really good feet, which is very important for me for a tackle. Which is actually kind of funny, man. Something that I do actually value in my offensive lineman is a nastiness. I don't actually see that nastiness, but I see a very controlled player at that position, which he doesn't go out there and make dumb penalties. He might not, you might want to see this guy pancake a guy. He might not do that, but trust me, he definitely moves the guys that are in front of him.
He is the true definition of a road grader. I mean, he's massive too. I mean,
right. I mean, it's definitely a projection. I just think Evan Neal has the lower floor. I mean, the lower ceiling of the two. I think, but I don't think Ekwonu's floor is much further than Evan Neal's ceiling. Honestly, that's where it really is for me. And I just think he's a massive human. And honestly, every time I watch that team play, he stood off the tape.
You have 4 offensive tackles in your top 10. You have Penning at number 9, and you actually have Charles Cross at 7. So Neal would actually be your tackle 4.
Right.
So I feel that there is maybe a kind of just different flavors with every one of these different tackles. If you want the more, I'd say, balanced, you would probably lean more towards an Evan Neal, who's really good at pass and run block.
I think Neal's just the safest of all the players, and honestly, it's not an Alabama knock. That's what I see with him.
Yeah, but I think Cross and is more of a pass blocking tackle.
I think he's more athletic.
I do too. He's maybe a little smaller too. I think maybe he could maybe bulk up just a little bit onto his frame.
He has good hand punch for me, actually, dude. Like he uses his hands very well for what he is. He's not, like as you say, he's not as big as Evan Neal, but his hand usage is very good, man. When guys try to do that swim and that rip, man, he just recovers so well. You can tell he does some kind of boxing training and things. That's what offensive linemen tend to do a lot, to work on their hand motions and things like speed bags. Cross has great hands and just has a really good center of gravity. I prefer him. His ceiling's higher than Neal for me. I think he's closer. I think he's a little bit closer to a player I would look at if I was picking in the top 10 for offensive tackle because of what he can be. I think he gets coached up very easily.
Linderbaum at 8.
That's just the Iowa thing. Honestly, he's definitely there. He's better than the center that went last year on tape for me. And I wasn't as high on the center last year.
Which center?
The Kansas City.
Creed Humphrey,
yeah. I'm a little bit higher on Linderbaum, and centers are hard for me, man. He definitely pulls well. This is almost just one of those things where I just know consensusly he's an Iowa offensive lineman. He's definitely going to pan out.
Yeah.
His tape
high floor.
Right, his tape is.
Say maybe he has one of the higher floors in this draft.
I think he's a day one starter. He does, but I think his ceiling is probably right under Quentin Nelson. I mean, he's definitely there, dude. He's a technician. He's just all around good football player, man.
Absolutely. And I know we're kind of jumping all over. Kayvon Thibodeau, I do want to touch on him briefly. Kayvon Thibodeau, I feel like going into the draft, into the 2021 season, he was kind of the consensus first overall pick.
Injuries definitely have plagued that.
For sure. And I also question his motor.
There's a motor thing and there's an explosion thing for me. I like explosive edge rushers. So, okay, you could say Aiden Hutchinson. Why is he ranked above him then? Because he's not this quick, twitchy athlete. But Aiden Hutchinson's a ball player. Aiden Hutchinson is going to stop the run. And so is Kayvon Thibodeau. Honestly, I just don't think – I think Oregon really had a chance to do something special on defense this year. I think a lot of the guys on that team underperformed as expectations got lower and lower after things piled onto them.
Mario Cristobal lost his job this year.
Yeah, nobody really took over for Oregon, honestly. I didn't think Thibodeau – he was on his pitch count. I mean, how are you supposed to – how am I supposed to get really good –
There were times in games where I felt that Thibodeau kind of just went a little silent. He just was very unnoticeable.
Right, and he wasn't consistently on the field.
Yes.
It's hard to really – I don't know, man. I mean, there's been injuries the last 2 seasons. I think he is a freak, as far as height, weight, speed. Mm-hmm. I don't think he has some people knock Chase Young because of that explosive first step or something. That does matter for edge rushers. It's definitely there. Thibodeau's going to be a very good football player, dude. He's in my top six for a reason.
Right. Okay. Well, we touched on pretty much everybody in your top 10. I'm going to read your 11 through 20. 11, you have Treylon Burks, wide receiver from Arkansas. Number 12, you have Nakobe Dean, the outside linebacker from Georgia. You have Jaquan Brisker. 13, the safety from Penn State. 14, you have Jordan Davis, the interior lineman, defensive line from Georgia. 15, you have Derek Stingley, Jr., corner from LSU. 16, Jermaine Johnson II from Florida State, edge. 17, Majay Sanders, edge from Cincinnati. 18, David Ajabo, edge, Michigan. Stop me if you've heard this, but edge, number 19, George Karlaftis from Purdue. And lastly, you have DeMarvin Leal, inside defensive line from Texas A&M.
I think from 11 to 20, I think you can just honestly say dog and meat and potatoes, man. I mean, these guys are going to be impact football players. I love all these guys. Treylon Burks, to me, is the most dynamic weapon I think that you're going to get on the offensive playmaker position, whether you're talking running back or wide receiver. I mean, he could do the Deebo Samuel thing, or he can go up and do like the Andre Johnson, just dog you like at the point of attack, high point of football.
Right.
He will occasionally have a drop or two because he's a volume guy. I mean, when you get 14 balls thrown to you a game, you're gonna drop one occasionally. It just happens. Brandon Marsh, everybody drops footballs. Like unless you're D Hopper, you're just some freak.
Yeah.
That's Treylon Burks. I'm super high on him. Honestly, this whole process, I mean, I don't think there's really anything that's going to knock him down. I mean, he's the most explosive offensive player, I think, to me. Just like when jumping off the tape. I mean, from game 1 to game 10, whatever it is, it's just this guy's off the tape in every big matchup in every game that they play. Nakobe Dean, stud, dog. Jaquan Brisker is an athletic freak.
Yeah.
He's safety one in most drafts.
In most drafts, I agree. But, there's a guy called Kyle Hamilton this year. I don't think that Brisker goes above him.
Jordan Davis, positional value. Maybe, maybe people don't like the non, disruptive pass rushing. The defensive tackle that's not going to have more than maybe 6 sacks a year. But honestly, this guy's massive, man. And honestly,
he's definitely a unit.
Georgia's defense gave up 0 this year, and honestly, Jordan Davis is the guy giving up 0 on the interior D line. Like he is always going negative for the offense. So
yeah,
that's a guy I salivate when I think about having a 3-4 defense, or just honestly anywhere. I mean, I want that guy on first, second, and honestly third down if he's got the stamina to do it. I'm keeping him in there because he's going to push the pocket back regardless of sack total.
Yep.
Stingley, we'll get there. Jermaine Johnson's a stud edge. Majay Sanders, I'm super high on. I'm really high on like 3 or 4 players from Cincinnati. Honestly, you'll see them in my ranking, but Majay Sanders is a stud.
Yeah, he's really good.
I got 4 edges in a row here with Karlaftis and Ajabo. I mean, honestly, I just think all of them guys, like, they all bring something special to the table.
They are all so different, actually.
Right, that's what I mean. Honestly, it's pick your poison with them guys. I think you could switch any of these names around, maybe even put a guy or 2 in between them. But honestly, these guys are all that second tier behind Hutchinson and
Thibodeau.
Yeah, I mean, and that jump isn't far.
I think this is your top 50, but I did my top 50, and I actually didn't have Kayvon Thibodeau as my second edge. But that's just a teaser for later. You did talk about all these edges. What do you think about Ajabo?
Ajabo is definitely his ceiling is immense. I think he needs to go to. He's one of those guys that better go to a team with a defensive coordinator that really prides themselves on the technical aspects of the game. I think he has all the tools.
I feel like he reminds me of Odafe Owe from last year, and he went to the Ravens, and it's just made total sense.
Right, you got to go to one of those defensive teams that just has like really good defensive coaches that knows how to use these traitsy guys and teach them the technicians of the position.
Because he hasn't been playing football for only a couple of years.
Right.
He didn't start playing until I think he said his junior year of high school. So.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that. You can see he gets lost. You can see the pass, like he doesn't have the one move to the next. You can tell he's definitely freelancing on the field.
Hell of a spin move though.
Yes, he does have dude, his burst off the line is elite.
I think he might be the most explosive of all the edges that are coming out this year.
I mean, realistically, man, Michigan has 2 stud defensive ends, and honestly, if you told me that one of them was my starter come next season, for my team, honestly, I'd be completely happy with that. And that's not talking about my team personally. It's just I'd field either of those guys on my team with the coaching staff that I really like. I think they're both really good football players. Michigan had a stallion of a team this year, and I think they could have even had a better season with a little bit more experience at quarterback position.
Definitely true. Before we move on to your next clump, I do want to touch Derek Stingley for a second. Is it mostly the injuries and the lack of consistent tape? Dropping him.
Definitely. I've definitely seen guys that have had really good early years, and then as wide receivers knew they were going up against them, they brought their A game. When you come out and have the freshman season that Stingley had, man, you're going to get the A game from every wide receiver that lines up against you. So George Pickens, he's going to play that. He's going to bring that game. I mean, when Treylon Burks comes to town, he's going to bring that game. When Florida comes to town with Kyle Pitts and all these guys, I mean, last year they're going to bring that game. Stingley's a stud. If my team picked him, I'd be elated. I would just hope for the injury bug to go away. He's not the best tackler either. That's
he
something
kind of shies away from physicality on all levels.
That's something that's critical for me. I've seen Gardner and Booth puts his head in.
Yes.
That's probably what gives him the bump over Gardner for me.
Yeah.
When it really, really comes down to the nitty gritty of it all, but Stingley's just trust me, dude. I mean, if this guy came out as a rookie and had 6 interceptions, I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I wouldn't be. I think Stingley's best fit, honestly, and I think this honestly meets a huge need for them. But honestly, I think it's the Jets with Robert Saleh.
I could see that. They could definitely see that, and he'll definitely get a chance to play.
Yeah, Stingley's a ball player. The Jets need. That's just one of a few. That's one of the scheme things.
They could use a corner.
Realistically, dude, if you're talking about guys that I really am in love with, there's a lot of guys underneath of Derek Stingley Jr. that I'm more in love with as players. But dude, I can't put that talent level. Realistically, I cannot justify his talent being lower than 15 because honestly, if I have pick 15, I'm probably running that card in just because, realistically, it's pick 15 and Derek Stingley's there.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've seen tape that I need to see from a cornerback that I would love. It's a premier position for me, and I think he's shown enough to warrant a pick. I wouldn't let him get past that point if I was the GM. Basically saying if I'm the Ravens, dude, he's not making it past me.
Oh, yeah. And that just seems like such a Ravens thing to do. Just take the best player that falls to them.
Right. If I'm the Chargers picking there at 17, I promise you, he ain't making it to 18. Every team that I look at in that range, I'm every one of them could run that pick up there. Yeah. That's what I mean, dude. Derek Stingley is right there because there's no way I could see anybody in that cluster of picks in that area.
Mid-teens.
Yeah, they're running that card in.
Okay, let's keep moving. 21, you have Garrett Wilson, wide receiver from Ohio State. Number 22, you got Trent McDuffie, a corner from Washington. 23, you got Logan Hall, defensive line hybrid, I'd say, kind of player from Houston. Perion Winfrey, 24, is an inside defensive lineman from Oklahoma. 25, you have Jerome Ford, running back from Cincinnati. Interesting right there. We'll definitely touch on him. And the guy next, Jalen Petrie at 26. Safety corner hybrid, I would say. From Baylor. 27, you got Jamison Williams, wide receiver from Alabama. 28, you got Trayvon Walker. Similar kind of to Logan Hall, defensive line hybrid, I would say, from Georgia. 29, you got Drake London, wide receiver, USC. And 30, you got Chris Olave, wide receiver from Ohio State.
Let's just go with the Ohio State wide receivers.
Let's touch on them.
I think Wilson has just juice for days, man. I think he's the more electric football player. I think he can do all the things that Olave can do. I just don't think he has mastered them to the level that Olave has with his experience starting in Ohio State. I think that's what gives him the bump there. Realistically, 10 spots, you can say whatever, but dude, all their grades are very close. All 10 of these guys' grades are very close.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson's just the one I prefer. That's a preference thing. Wide receiver is a eye of the beholder kind of
Yes, I like Garrett Wilson more than Chris Olave as a player, and I don't know if that's just because I'm a Chargers fan. I feel like we need a receiver that works the inside and maybe turns those smaller plays into bigger chunks. Whereas Olave, I'd say, is a little bit more of a deep threat and more get your yards and chunks kind of receiver.
Right.
While we're talking about wide receivers, Jameson Williams and Drake London. Jameson Williams obviously coming off an ACL. Does that impact where you put him?
Honestly, it would have been higher.
Yeah.
I'd probably put him right there with Garrett Wilson. Honestly, I think their actual grades for my season were the same.
Pretty similar.
They actually were the same. For me, it's just ACLs always matter. Apparently, it's going good. His surgery and everything like that. Drake London's a stud.
He's also coming off of an injury too.
He is too, and he's definitely had a couple little freak little things. I think that comes with being a long strider. There is a thing to that as far as what I've learned in my years of watching players over their careers in the NFL. I do notice injuries. Drake London's a stud, man. 6'5". This guy honestly does things that like Vincent Jackson used to do for the Chargers in the deep game. As far as maybe what he's going to run compared to like how much he takes the top off of a defense because of his size. Definitely has box out ability, solid hands. I love him.
Mm-hmm. Very lengthy.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, no really good quarterback play to speak of at USC.
No, not really. I mean, you could say that they had decent with Slovis, but
right. I mean, they're decent, but I mean, I just some of these other guys have had some pretty good quarterback play.
Yeah,
Strauss.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Treylon Burks has had really nothing, I think, for quarterback play.
Big Felipe Franks guy.
Not a big Felipe Franks guy. So Drake London's definitely up there for me. The injuries are a little bit whatever.
I am very excited. I'm normally not a big combine guy, but I am really excited to see what Drake London runs at the combine.
I am too. I think that's definitely going to be a thing that gets him. People are going to knock him. As far as for me, I think his tape speaks. I think that's about where he is, unless he just runs like a 4.85 or something like that. But I don't see that happening.
No, I'm definitely not. But I think he has probably the most to gain from a good combine. When it comes to wide receivers, I can see him jumping.
Yeah, I mean, as far as most to gain, I mean, short of like Treylon Burks running a 4.3 and just cementing like number one status or something like that,
impressive.
I don't think it happens. I think he's a 4.4, maybe 4, like really low 4.5 guy. Like that's a bad run, I think, for Treylon Burks. He's fast.
Yeah.
To Trent McDuffie, the corner from Washington.
Yeah.
Love Washington corners. I think we both.
Kind of similar to when you talk about the Iowa linemen. It's just like you can almost get away with helmet scouting Washington defensive backs.
He's honestly one of the best nickels I've scouted. When I think about nickel grades that I have, I have a really good nickel grade for like Mika Fitzpatrick and like the Honey Badger going back years. I give a nickel grade and an outside grade because I think it matters. If you're going to put a priority on the nickel because you already have a really solid outside group of corners, nickel is important. You're running the nickel a lot, and when I think about nickel corners, man, I think about guys that have to be able to tackle because realistically, you can coverage, but you're a liability. It's hard enough to cover inside. You can't be lacking tackling ability because you're almost like a box safety at that point because realistically, you're getting interchanged with a player from that position.
Yeah.
Or a linebacker. So, you have to have safety tackling ability. He tackles well.
He does. I think McDuffie might have like some of the best vision in this draft when it comes to defensive backs. I feel like he just maybe has like just football IQ.
I think he honestly just like stays right in the hip pocket better than just about most players that you watch scout at that position. Logan Hall from Houston is just a dynamic prospect, man. Like, he was definitely on my radar. Watching him at the Senior Bowl really made me go back and actually watch like a couple Houston games that I've already seen. This guy does actually just jump off the tee. He just beats guys, like whether he's inside or out. Like
that's why I said he's kind of just like a hybrid defensive lineman. Like, given that the game is played with different fronts, you need guys that can come in and play on different parts of the line. I feel like that's a guy that really kind of you could have to do something like that, where it's like you can have him line up at edge, but when you have your 5 or 6 pieces in your secondary out there, he can still be out there because he's big enough to play on the inside. I watched quite a bit of Logan Hall, not really throughout the season, but I kind of just had an afternoon one day where I just watched a bunch of Houston tape, and honestly, he's just really just explosive. I love his hands. He's very strong. He constantly finds
He
ways
plays.
to shed blocks.
You know how they always say like a receiver plays above his frame. You know, he's not a small guy, but dude, like he plays above his frame. Like man, I watch him bull bigger linemen like back. Like it looks like he's like so much lower than they are, but like this guy just honestly, man, from a leverage point, his explosion with his hands, his burst, like. He times snaps very well too. I think that's something that's very underrated, man. When I watch the first guy off the line every time, it's usually him.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm talking about that was in the Senior Bowl too. It's just something I noticed, man. He must have really good eyes looking down the line of scrimmage. He definitely has very good reactional speed. I definitely saved these last three guys on this segment for a reason. Perrion Winfrey, Jerome Ford, and Petrie. I think these are the most interesting. You're not going to see these guys, I think, in most people's top 20, even top 30 or 40.
Right.
Perrion Winfrey, maybe because of this guy's an dude, this guy's a freak. This guy's a physical freak, man.
Yeah.
He might not jump off of the tape every snap, and I don't think any player does. Like you definitely watch this guy jump off a tape, and then you see there's parts of the game where you want to see that where he's not, but like realistically, man, like it's hard to like just make these freak splash plays. Like it takes a lot of energy out of you, man. He's a freak guy, man. But when this guy's motor is on, man, like this guy pushes pockets just as good as Jordan Davis, and he has the pass rush.
He is
that Jordan Davis does not have, but he also does not have the upside I think that Jordan Davis has in the run department.
Yes, I don't think that he necessarily has like swallow the line of scrimmage, but he pushes the pocket.
Right. I don't think he's going to be like the Vita Vea or like Deron Payne or like Jordan Davis.
Chris Jones.
Yes. I'm thinking about defensive pressure. I'm thinking about a guy that's going to just make noise from the interior of the offensive line and like actually get home and get sacks. Mm-hmm. Definitely more in the mold of like a more athletic Jonathan Allen. Honestly, this guy. Bursts off the line, and honestly, he gets home. He gets home like an edge rusher.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him go higher than a lot of people think.
I could definitely see that. I think this guy has been held back from like a technical standpoint at Oklahoma. I'm not ever saying like Oklahoma's not getting good coaching. They definitely are, but I think this guy is like so reliant like on his physical attributes, man, that like honestly, when this guy learns how to like really incorporate like his hands and like the techniques of the game, man, this guy has all pro talent. I'm just going to keep it real, man. Honestly, I would love to throw this guy even higher on this list.
Let's get to Jerome Ford.
Man.
First running back.
Yeah, it's definitely my first running back in the top 25. I don't think anybody's got. I mean, dude, I think Jerome Ford's a stud. I actually think this guy's a stud. I'm going to say the Jets again because of Robert Saleh, but this is definitely a scheme thing, man. Like, I think you put Jerome Ford in a zone blocking scheme, man, with that Kyle Shanahan offense. I mean, you can name a million teams because this tree is just expanding in the NFL, and it's expanding for a reason. It's because this system works, and defenses are struggling to adapt to it because there's so many different ways to interchange parts. Like, you don't have to hide. Like, you can have a mobile quarterback, or you can have a really athletic quarterback, and you can still make this offense run in any variation of like how you want to do it. You can have the core receivers, you can have the stud number one and tight end. It's like any variation that you want to run with this offensive scheme, you can find the guys to do it. You don't have to like have a single set piece. But when I look at when I think about Jerome Ford, man, this guy is decisive, man. This guy is big, he is powerful, he is elusive. Like, honestly, man, like I remember watching Marshawn Lynch at Cal, and honestly, like you know, this is back in the age of running backs, man, where like running backs were whatever, man. And I don't know what, like, I remember watching, like, you know, I'm not talking about once he made beast mode play, you know, against the Saints in the playoffs, like where everybody was like, oh, Marshawn Lynch. I'm talking about like Marshawn Lynch as a college player. You know, when people aren't like familiar with these people, dude, there's nothing that I see that Jerome Ford doesn't do at Cincinnati that Marshawn wasn't doing at Cal. Like, this guy's a big football player, man. He is athletic. He can jump cut. Like, I mean, he blocks well. Like, honestly, like I think that Cincinnati offense was pretty much run through him and Ritter. I mean, and then, you know, they'd throw the deep ball to Alex Pierce every now and again. But Jerome Ford was the one out there breaking guys down for 3-4 quarters.
Yeah, I think he's an every down back, too. I think in a climate in the NFL where you see kind of just teams carrying multiple running backs, I feel like this is kind of a back that you can kind of put out there.
But I think you could run him in a system, like I said, with the Jets. Like, you have him and Michael Carter. Think about the Javonte Williams and like Michael Carter at UNC. Like that's basically what you're going right back to if you're the Jets or a team like that wants to incorporate two. I don't think he's a guy that needs carries to get going. Basically, to where he can carry the load and like he'll get stronger as the game goes on. But honestly, he can get touches and get average with few touches. He's an explosive runner, man. Like he's probably going to run a 4.5. He's probably not going to time the best, but I think 4.5 for a running back is it's solid enough, dude. Like honestly, we've seen a lot of running backs that run 4.5s like Derrick Henry, and just like I'm not saying he's Derrick Henry, but it's like these guys run 4.5 are very effective running backs in the league. They do what they do.
100%.
And then honestly, one of my favorite players in the draft, Jalen Petrie. Really can't justify putting him ahead of a lot of the guys ahead of him. Him and Jerome Ford, I have very similar grades on overall. Jalen Petrie is just the type of player that I love. He can play the free. He can play the nickel. He can play some weak side linebacker, and he can play strong. I've seen him line up a corner. This guy's good at all these positions. And when when you always say, oh, he's a jack of all trades, he's good at these things, but he's not great at any of them. Honestly, he's pretty great at all of them when I watch him.
I think he jumped off the tape in this year at Baylor. And also, he had a very good Senior Bowl. I mean, he didn't have any stats that would jump off of a score sheet. But
he jumps off the tape. Like, he tackles. He is the best tackler on the field when he's on the field.
He deflected a few passes in the box. He's just
he's clean in coverage. Like, he's not a grabby guy when he's in coverage. So, like, coverage to him is natural. Like, he covers like a corner, hits like a safety or a linebacker. Like, he can rush the passer. Like, he hits sacks. Like, if you turn on Baylor's defense, man, they have 3 really stud players. They have a really good nose tackle. They have him. They have a corner. They have another safety. Like, they have a linebacker. Like, but there's 3 guys that just jump off the tape, man. I promise you turn on Baylor, you're going to see number 8. He makes plays.
I like their corner a lot, number 2. I need to learn
his
name.
Yeah,
for sure. But we'll figure it out.
I'm kind of just going off.
I think that's everybody in your top. So we'll go down to your 30. At 31, you have Devin Lloyd, linebacker from Utah. 32, you have your first quarterback, Matt Corral from Ole Miss. Number 33, you have your second quarterback, Malik Willis from Liberty. 34, you have linebacker Christian Harris from Alabama. 35, you have Kenyon Green, interior lineman from Texas A&M. I think he could be a right tackle maybe in the NFL. 36,
he's definitely right for me.
36, you have John Mechie, wide receiver from Bama. 37 is Devontae Wyatt, interior defensive line from Georgia. 38, you got Trey McBride, tight end from Colorado State. 39, you got Nicholas Petit-Frere, right tackle from Ohio State. And 40, you have Desmond Ridder. Quarterback from Cincinnati.
So there's 3 quarterbacks, so we'll just knock these out pretty quick. There's no real consensus. This class, we already know the narrative. Everybody knows the narrative on this class is that there's no real top guy, the number one guy.
Yeah.
I think generally what people are going to say, oh my God, you don't have a quarterback rated until 32, so nobody should go in the first round. Well, that's just not how the NFL works.
No, it's not.
There's probably 3 guys to go in the first. Honestly,
maybe even more.
Just to give like an example of why this does actually make sense to people, should make sense to people, is if you go back to like the Justin Herbert year with Joe Burrow was probably like the actual 4th or 5th ranked player around this time. On like a big board, and then the combine and then the interview process goes, and of course he solidified himself as number 1. But Justin Herbert in that same time frame was probably around in this range in the 20s to like teens, like as a high before the combine, before interviews, right after the Senior Bowl. Like he'd blown up the Senior Bowl, and everybody's like, oh, we got to go back and take a look at Justin Herbert. It's like this time of the year, man, when the guy doesn't separate himself, before the combine, before interviews, if there's no sure thing, man, a lot of quarterbacks are rated in the 20s to 30s, before they really take that leap. I mean, Baker Mayfield was a huge example of that. Like, before he really was picked number 1. I mean, I remember him being, some guy's 40th ranked prospect, before he went. And, you can say whatever about how his career has panned out, but it's like, you just don't know. Like, a team is going to fall in love with one of these guys. We don't get to interview these guys. So,
right.
Matt Corral has the juice for me. A lot of issues with him for reasons why he scares me as a prospect. Same thing as Zach Wilson last year. It's kind of slight, comes out of that quarterback-friendly offense where you can put up numbers, good run game. Just playmakers are on the field and they're wide open. What I will say for Corral is, man, they had a lot of injuries this year, and honestly, his play didn't really fall off outside of the Bama game, and that's just against Bama. And that's a team that's overmatching them at every spot. For me, for Matt Corral, I think Matt Corral has everything I want in here as far as just attitude and whatever, man. Maybe needs to learn how to slide and protect himself a little bit better. Then if you go to Malik Willis, man, this guy's a world-class athlete. I think I was even sleeping on him maybe a little bit more than what I thought from a running capability. But Malik Willis is a stud. He definitely has a lot to work on as a quarterback, running the nuances of its scheme and being that guy. I think Malik Willis definitely needs a redshirt year. He's probably going to go in the top 15, top 10. Just off athletic traits alone, you're going to see him probably Trey Lance it next season. And then Desmond Ritter, man. Desmond he's a winner. He's got the height, weight, speed, everything you love.
I think he could be a little bit bigger. He's 6'4" and weighs 200 pounds. I feel like he could add maybe just a little bit to that frame. But, I mean, I think I'm just nitpicking.
I think Ritter has the raw traits that, realistically, we don't even know what his ceiling is. Like, you know, you could say he's, like, one of the safer picks in this draft, but realistically, like, we don't even know because, like, you put this guy in a scheme with, like, one of these, like, Kyle Shanahan-type offenses, man, and, like, hey, man, like, you know, all of a sudden this guy has, like, a Jalen Waddle around him and, like, one of those, you know, if Miami, like, upgraded their offensive line, you know, you just never know. That'd be a young, hungry team. You know, or you say Washington with Terry McLaurin and, like, Antonio Gibson. Like, you think about that with Desmond Ritter and you're, like, you have his legs and his arm talent and, like, honestly, you can say whatever about his early game accuracy. If he, you know, okay, like, he's a slow starter. That's a lot of quarterbacks in college, you know, that aren't fundamentally sound in their footwork and things like that. There's a lot of things that offensive coordinator is going to look at with Desmond Ritter, and they're going to fall in love with because they're just no other guy in this class has what he has.
Yeah.
As far as like the all around like height, weight, speed, and he does have a cannon. I mean, dude, he has an arm.
He does.
I'm not going. He doesn't have a Josh Allen, but he has an arm. Like he has a really good arm.
Yeah, I don't think his arm would be the reason why you lose games in the NFL. His arm strength.
And then like, honestly, I mean that pretty much clears up the quarterbacks for me. Two guys that really are kind of close on this list, closer than I think most lists have them. Christian Harris and Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd's pretty far down for me. I like Utah players, and I like Devin Lloyd. When I think about a linebacker, man, I like really, really intelligent guys, and I like guys that bring the wood. Maybe that's more of a, you know, maybe they're going to get hurt more likely than a guy that isn't bringing the wood like that on every play. But Devin Lloyd racks up tackles, man. He's all over the field. He's a physical specimen. I definitely saw him hurt this year too. But I just prefer the guys that impact attitudes. When a running back runs through the hole and he just gets stood up by a linebacker, man, I like linebackers like that. Like.
Yeah.
You look how effective the Bengals linebacker was in the Super Bowl, man.
Luke Wilson?
Yeah, dude. Luke Wilson was all over that field, man. He was laying the wood, like instinctual linebacker. And those are just things that I think put Christian Harris closer to, you know, that top tier of linebackers. And I think, like, you know, like I think Devin Lloyd is already in that top tier as far as, like, what I see on film.
Yes. I want to touch on Devin Lloyd real quick. I think he's a little bit more skilled when it comes to coverage than run.
Definitely. He's definitely got the Jamin Davis type thing in that regard.
I can't help it. Like I said, I watch things as a Chargers fan, and it's just like when I watch Devin Lloyd, it's just like I wish he just had a little bit more raw tenacity when it came to like stopping the run.
I want to see him run through ball carriers. I want to see him meet guys in the hole and push them backwards, and not just bring them down or not just toe tackle them. Yeah. I mean, bringing them down is important, but it's. You know, it does matter. I think Christian Harris is a big guy. Christian Harris is a very smart guy. I think he's probably more of a weak side linebacker in the NFL. I don't know if I want him. He can call. I mean, he can definitely call out the game plan and like, you know, get guys where they need to be. But I honestly just think I would like to take the mental out of Christian Harris's game and just let him attack because I think he's that guy. I think if you just let him attack, if you just give him a gap responsibility and just tell him to go there, it's like you take thinking out of the game for Christian Harris, and man, you see the difference when he's at outside linebacker for Alabama compared to when he's at Mike, when he's thinking and processing, and he has to be the spy, you know, in certain games. It's just you definitely see a difference in impact. That's what I noticed about Christian Harris. I definitely like this guy. Kenyon Green, interior offensive line. He just really fits the narrative of there's just a lot of really, really good guard, tackle, center. I mean, dude, honestly, man, the top 50 is just littered with the offensive linemen. All of their tape is really, really good. Pick your poison. I prefer a zone blocking scheme, which I think maybe is why he's more in the 35 instead of on my top tier compared to most people actually having him as their top tier. I think he's definitely more of a inline blocker than a zone blocker. So that might be the reason why he's a little lower on my list than most.
Yeah, I think he's can definitely play either guard, but I would like to see him at right tackle. I mean, he's 6'4", 325. I mean,
right. He's an inline blocker. I mean, he's definitely a right tackle. I have him at right tackle. He definitely can play guard. Either way, he's in line. Even if he is guard, I don't think he'd be athletic for a guard. I don't think he has enough to really be that guy, that agile guy on the offensive line to really be the zone blocking scheme guy, which is just a preference thing for me. So
Yeah.
he's definitely got the tape. Same with the Ohio State guy that I got at 39, Petit Freer.
Yeah.
Trey McBride, the first tight end that I got at 38. I wasn't going to let the one for the Falcons. What was
Kyle Pitts?
No. The other one that Baltimore drafted.
Hayden Hurst.
I wasn't going to let Hayden Hurst and guys that have come out of programs before dictate my grade for somebody else. Trey McBride is a really good player.
Did Hayden Hurst go to Colorado State?
I'm pretty sure, or he went
to South Carolina.
South Carolina, that's right. There's a tight end that's been rated pretty highly in the last couple of drafts or something that just didn't pan out from Colorado. I can't even remember who it is. I thought it was Hayden Hurst. Anyway, what I mean is Trey McBride's a stud. Has a really good tape, really good blocker. I think he definitely needs work in that department. As far as from a technique, he's definitely willing. He's a willing blocker, is what I should say. Like when he does that proper technique, he can actually move guys back and move guys off spots and be an effective part of a run blocking scheme. But he's definitely a weapon. Definitely has really good hands. Doesn't separate very well, but he's definitely a box out guy. Honestly, I think about Jimmy Graham early with Drew Brees. A guy that wasn't getting great separation, but just the ball hits his hands.
He's sure-handed.
The ball's
the middle of the field. He's competent blocking. I wouldn't say he's an amazing blocker. He's not. I don't have as high of a grade of him as T.J. Hawkinson.
Right. No.
I definitely don't with Kyle Pitts, but he is. I have him probably at the end of my I'm sorry, not at the end of day one, beginning of day two. I think that's kind of where his sweet spot is. He's definitely, I think, tight end one though.
Yeah, he's definitely my one. I don't think
there's really anybody else that I would say is oh wow, he's going to be better than Trey McBride.
I think Weidelmeyer has a chance.
I just think Weidelmeyer's a little slow.
He is a little slow, but that doesn't seem to stop tight ends from being effective in the NFL once they develop that skill set. The only one we really haven't talked about is John Mechie. I'm a big Mechie fan, actually, man. I don't know, I'm almost kind of putting him down here because I'm just wondering if do I just like him because of the Alabama thing, or is this I really do like his tape, but it's he's played with so many greats. It's dude, when is the Bama thing stop? Eventually the train.
Julio.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. But eventually, there's always for every Calvin Johnson and Baby Thomas, there's the other one, that went to the Jets. It's eventually the train stops somewhere, and I don't think it stops with Mechie, but it's at the bottom of my barrel, man, I see a guy that is just probably the best number 2 in the league. I don't think he's a dynamic guy to be the number 1.
Yeah.
But if you have your number 1, your solid number 1, and you're really just trying to go rags to riches, or just make riches out of a position, just double up at it, I really see Mechie being that Reggie Wayne to somebody, that 1B that's really a 1, but you don't want him to be your 1, kind of thing, because just the things you can do with him.
I totally get that. Did you want to touch on Devontae Wyatt at all? Really not a lot to say about him. He's just an interior defensive lineman.
I could not put him any lower, is what I really want to say. Honestly, there was just no way I could put him lower. Georgia's defense, honestly, I have a lot of Cincinnati representation on this list, and I got to this point, and I just realized I was kind of almost disrespecting Georgia because they're amazing. They have defenders on every level. They're really good players, and honestly, I hate when I have so many really good grades on one school, on one unit, because it really does make it hard to determine who is that X factor on that group. But honestly, Devontae Wyatt's a stud. Same thing with their nose tackle that
Davis?
I had. Yeah, Davis. Yeah, dude. This defensive line last year, just the rotation that they had, and honestly, they're going to be good again next year. It's there's actually a Georgia player coming up that I'm really excited about on this list, but we'll get there. Let's just run down 41 to 50.
Yeah,
let's close it out because that's that.
Yeah, let's do it. 41, we got quarterback Sam Howell from North Carolina. 42, we got quarterback Kenny Pickett from Pitt. 43, we got Daniel Falele, the tower of a man, offensive tackle from Minnesota. 44, we have George Pickens. Don't forget about him. From wide receiver from Georgia. 45, we have Jahan Dotson, wide receiver, Penn State. 46, we have Daxton Hill, safety from Michigan. 47, we have Brian Asamoah, linebacker from Oklahoma. 48, we have Alante Taylor, corner from Tennessee. 49, we have Chad Muma, linebacker from Wyoming. And last but certainly not least, 50, we have Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati, defensive back, corner actually.
All right, so these are guys that are going to be spread throughout, people's big boards. Like some,
Yeah.
I think they'll all, for the most part, be on everybody's top 100.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's like it's like it's kind of a pick your flavor thing at this point. But we'll start with Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett. We'll get the quarterbacks out of the way.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett, man, I do not watch the ball explode off his hands. It did not explode off his hands in the Senior Bowl. I don't care about the rain practice and a bad day. Like that did matter. Like that could have definitely shut me up on the hand thing. I'm not like somebody who falls in love with measurables.
Yeah.
It does not deter me. It's never deterred me from like Kyler Murray or like Russell Wilson. What I see on tape from them guys is the ball explode out of their hand. That does matter to me.
Yeah.
I don't care if your hand is 7 1/4. I don't care if your hand is 10 1/4. The ball explodes out of your hand. The ball explodes out of your hand.
I agree.
I don't see that with Kenny Pickett.
No.
Kenny Pickett, honestly, like this last year, his tape reminded me a little bit of Andrew Luck light, where Andrew Luck, the ball didn't explode out of his hands, but like, dude, you just watch him move behind the line of scrimmage and just like move and buy time in the pocket. Like he has these pro traits. Kenny Pickett has it. I know why he is most people's number one quarterback. Yeah. I understand that. He's definitely the safest.
Yeah.
Sam Howell, man, he does a lot of things to drive me crazy as when I scout players. I hate players that pat the ball. I think that gives the defense time to know where the ball's going, or they know the ball's coming out. It's definitely a thing. It's definitely something that whatever. He has a baseball like follow through where he's like always on his left leg with his right leg in the air.
Right leg. Yeah.
There's definitely some things, man. But I tell you what, he drops the ball in a basket. I like Sam Howell. He's never like ever done anything for me to not like him, but he's never done that one thing that I just needed him to do, which was just like take it over, just take the game over. I like Sam Howell. I would not be upset with him as my quarterback. Daniel Falele from Minnesota, man. I don't really know what it is about his tape, but I tell you what, because it's not technique, it's not anything, but he just does something that I've never seen done, and that is when somebody runs into him, they disappear.
Yeah.
He's just a big guy. You don't go around him. You don't go through him. It's not technique. It's not like I don't know, man, but
he's just massive.
He's huge, man.
I know he's like 6'8". Let me look it up. He's 380 pounds. I mean, he's massive. I mean, he is all of 380 pounds.
And he slides well. So like, it doesn't even matter that like guys get into his body, because it's just like, well, he just engulfs them. He just plays it a different way than I've ever seen it. But I do not see guys come around the edge on him, man. Or they do, and they do it on double moves, and it takes time, and it's like realistically the ball should be out. So like when I think about like that throw count, like 1, 2, 3, go, kind of thing, it's like he definitely gets the job done.
Yeah.
And in the run, man, he can really like light you. He can light you up.
I think he's going to be a really good run blocking right tackle in the NFL. I think that's kind of what he translates to. I don't think he's as good as some of the other tackles. I don't think he has left side upside.
No, he's not left.
And I think that
he's not left. He's not even athletic enough to play left. He doesn't like keep guys away from his body good enough to play left.
And I kind of feel like between last year and this year, he just really didn't see a lot of development. I kind of feel like he's just been blessed with an amazing NFL frame. And I think knows how to use it. But I
think he can be coached up. I think that's part of it for me too.
We said the same thing about Vita Vea coming out of Washington in his draft year. We were like, he's just literally massive and he's a nose, but like, what can he do? But he has a ring now.
But he got with the right coaching, and it's like that matters.
And
like
he's next to Ndamukong Suh.
That's the thing with any of these prospects, man. Like, dude, you put Falele next to like a Brandon Scherf or like one or Quentin Nelson, one of these
Rashawn Slater.
Yeah, one of these teams that just like, prioritize having a good team in the trenches and protecting their quarterback and just having a good run game. Yeah, like he's, it definitely matters where he goes. This next player that I got, George Pickens, I couldn't let him fall anymore. Honestly, man, like this guy before the ACL, stud. Just a stud, difference maker, man. You throw the ball up, he's going to go get it. It's his ball. 50-50s are his.
Yeah.
They're not 50-50s anymore. They're George Pickens balls when
Yeah.
the ball gets thrown up for him. He has not had the greatest quarterback play. And honestly, man, like he had one catch in the national title game, and that's been George Pickens' game. It was literally quarterback throwing the ball up there and George Pickens playing it. And like whether it's a diving catch, whether it's a one-handed catch, whether it's a sideline toe drag, teams have, dude, Odell Beckham showed why these types of players are just, maybe he doesn't run the best routes, or maybe it's not this, or maybe it's not that, but dude, like, my God, this dude just catches, like, his hands, man. Like,
yeah, and he got hurt this year, but his freshman tape was really good, and his
sophomore tape when he wasn't like blowing a gasket, because quarterbacks couldn't get him the ball. Yes, man, dude. Like, yes, I think there's definitely a little bit of attitude that comes into his rankings nationally. But dude, like,
I think somebody could get a steal with
I was about to say, dude, you look at the second round and you get a guy like George Pickens, man, and this guy has every ability to be the number one wide receiver that comes out of this class. Like, you're talking about injury, which is one reason he's down in this area, because he didn't play this last year, the end of last year for Georgia, with him, kind of like getting suspended from a game. And there's just things that have like, happened. But like realistically, man, when you watch
this, the upside is there.
Yes, dude, this guy's a football player, man. I was not letting him go any lower than that. I definitely, like, as much as I love John Dotson, like the guy I have right behind him, like, dude, George Pickens at his best, man. Like you said, it's like his freshman tape, and just honestly, like what you saw as a sophomore, when like the quarterbacks would actually give him a chance to get the ball. And honestly, man, this guy can play, man. Jonah Dawson's a stud.
I like him a lot. I think you're too low on him.
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people would say that I'm too low on him, but dude, little guys take time. Little
guy that little. He's 5'11".
We'll see.
I don't know. I like him. I just think that he's a fun player and he's explosive.
He's definitely explosive, man. Like he definitely has the Elijah Moore. He definitely has the Elijah Moore.
I know, and I just want him on the Chargers so badly. I think that's all the wide receivers.
Because he's an electric slot. He is an electric slot receiver.
But I watched so much Penn State tape, and I see him line up on the outside.
He's not just a slot guy, but that's where that's where he starts probably 45 to like 65% of my snaps.
Right.
Is in the slot. I definitely would not just marry him to the slot or marry him outside. He would definitely be predominantly slot, but definitely he's going to get reps outside because he has that electric speed. He can definitely take the top off of defense. Dude, his hands are there. I just think he's smaller than 5. I don't know, man. I don't know if that 5. I think that when I watch him like line up against certain corners, I'm like, is he really 5'11"? I think he's more of the 5'10", 5'9", and some high change.
Yeah, we'll see what he comes in at the combine.
Daxton Hill's an electric. He's a freak athlete.
I like Daxton Hill.
He's
I'm biased. Athlete. I'm Michigan. I love my Michigan players, but I really do like Daxton Hill. He's really good.
I try to keep bias out of any ranking.
I do too.
That's why, like, I've been the Will Greers of the world have, when I start to fall in love with some of my friends' teams, players, I have a buddy that loves West Virginia, and I've really, let that sauce and those stories go to my head on like my Will Greer rankings.
Yeah. I think Daxton Hill has upside to be a nickel defender.
I think he's a stud. He has all the tools. I think honestly, like, you could almost even see him doing a Ramsey thing. I think he's athletic enough to play corner.
I agree. I like him a lot. I know you like Asamoah a lot, linebacker from Oklahoma. He wears 24, I believe, right? Because we thought he was Asamoah. I'm like, is this related to Nnamdi?
Right.
No, he's not.
This guy I have seen play corner. This guy has ball skills like a corner.
Yeah.
But he will lay the wood on you. He's more close to Petrie, but he's more of a true linebacker.
Yeah, he's a little smaller. I know he's 6 foot and weighs like, I think, maybe 210, 15 pounds.
That's why he can cover like a corner. I mean, he looks like a corner.
Right.
But he lays the wood like
he lines up at the linebacker.
He can play linebacker. He can play downhill linebacker. You will see him whiff every now and again, man. It's the most frustrating thing because you see him blow that same play up like 3 plays earlier, and then you see him miss a play that's just like, dude, you just made that play. You just made that exact play. So that's definitely a thing for me with Asamoah. But I think this guy can be coached up into a stud, a real stud. The This next player is a guy I really actually am really high on, man.
Yeah.
The more I watch this guy,
Monte Taylor, corner.
yeah, like
Tennessee.
my notes this year, I snuck in a lot of Tennessee tape, man. I've been finding a guy out of them, almost like I've been finding a guy out of Kentucky every year. The last year that I just start to like really grow. That really grows on me, man. Alontae Taylor's a stud, man. You watch Tennessee, man. They really held themselves in some games that I didn't think they were capable of staying in last year. Alontae Taylor's a stud, man. He went up against some really good corners and put up some really good tape.
Yeah, and he had a good Senior Bowl, I think, too. I think he had a really good Senior Bowl. Didn't really have anything good happen that, would, raise your eyebrows, be like, ooh, man, what's going on here? No, he just played a sound good game. He had a good practice, I believe, too. He's a good corner, dude.
The traits that I look for that cornerbacks that I really, really like in this like second to third round range, year in and year out, that like tend to be the traits that I look for that pan out in the league. He has all of them. He has ball skills, man. He has really good hips, really good feet. He can jam, he can press, he can play off.
I think he's really good in zone.
He's really good in zone.
Yeah, he's definitely zone, and I think he, like you said, press too. He
can play. He can play both. He can play both, but like when he's looking at the cornerback, man, he's electric. He will pick six a ball.
Yep,
he's definitely got that skill set.
Chad Mumo, speaking of explosive,
this guy's a cannonball, man.
Yeah.
This guy finds lanes in offensive lines that aren't there. I've seen this guy honestly run sideways through the line and just blow up a running back where he was off balance and not even trying.
He's explosive. Watching him in the Senior Bowl was like watching Luke Wilson in the Super Bowl, and that's kind of who I call.
The forward progress stops when you run into this guy.
Yeah.
And he can cover. He can cover very well.
He's quick. He's rangy.
I actually got some pretty good hops for. He gets up for a guy that's his size.
He ran down Malik Willis in the Senior Bowl.
Yes, he did, man. Honestly, I've had this guy high all year, and honestly, man, I think the pub got out on this guy. Honestly, man.
Yeah, I think after the Senior Bowl, he just kind of a lot of these guys did. I mean,
he's a stud. He's a stud, dude.
A lot of these players that we talked about were players that we were high on, and then
as the season, like Perrion Winfrey, man, that guy took the game over, man. Yeah. It's just certain wide receivers that I liked. Romeo Dubs, trust me, he's not in my top 50. I think Dubs is definitely one a third, fourth, fifth round guy who's it definitely matters. He's kind of like the Palmer for you guys last year from Tennessee, man. Just a guy that I think is going to create really good value. The Tyler Johnsons of the world.
Right.
Those
where you don't have an elite skill set, maybe a combine trait that just doesn't separate you from everybody else.
But you're gonna make a 53-man roster, and you're going to actually you're going to see time on the field, whether it's through injury. And once they get on the field, they're not going to give that spot up. They're those type of players, man. Like for the for the receiver that out of UNC last year that went in the 5th. To the Bears. Daz Newsome. And then I ended off with Kobe Bryant because
I think this is one of our favorite players. This might be my favorite player.
We've been talking about this guy for honestly last year this guy was up there with the top 3 or 4 with me. He was definitely in my top 5 last year.
Yeah, and I watched a lot over the past 2 years. I watched a lot of Cincy ball. Just a big fan of that program that they have going right there. It's just literally a football factory that they have. And Kobe Bryant, last year we were watching a lot of their tape, and we were just constantly saying, he gets number 7?
I mean, dude, he gets thrown at. He gets thrown at a lot.
But he is really good.
And dude, he has that Kendall Fuller thing, man, where maybe he doesn't pick off a bunch of passes or whatever, but dude, always getting his hand in there at the last minute, sticks to guys' hips, he's probably going to have to work on a little bit of the hand checking thing, I think every cornerback in that level, in the college level, because they can hand check more in college, but that is something that I do pay attention to, and definitely comes into my rankings when I'm watching these guys. It's how much do they rely on the hand check, or how much is the hand more just being there because it can be there?
Right.
Kobe Bryant's a stud, and there was no way I was leaving him off my top 50, even if maybe he's not the top 50 players in this class. I think
I have him higher.
I think he's a stud. I think he's a stud.
He's really good. I think he's going to go higher than a lot of people think. There's no way he's
going to this corner class is honestly one of those years that if you need corner or offensive lineman, man, as you can tell by this list, I think you're in a good place.
Corner, wide receiver, and edge, I think this year are the real deep positions.
They're definitely they're definitely
especially
deep.
in the first 3 rounds. Like if you can't if you can't find an edge or a corner this year in the draft, then maybe you just need to find some different scouts.
I think when we look back on this class, along with last year's class and the class before, man, I think you're going to start to see some of these teams that are really like focused in on defense over the last couple of years. I think you're going to see them really start to transcend the league as far as like catching up to some of these offenses that have really just ran away with these young quarterbacks and the success that they're having. Turning over this new era, with the Bradys and them guys leaving the NFL and like the Allens and Mahomes and all these exciting players like, Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray. These guys that just do everything. They can run and throw the ball all over the yard. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and, I'm sure Trey Lance is coming. These guys have amazing skill sets at the quarterback position. I think these teams that haven't gotten these cornerbacks that have really been loading up on these defenders the last couple of years, I think about like the Panthers, they started to show flashes of it. I think these guys are going to start to really separate themselves and be very effective defenses in the league because of players like these guys. These athletic linebackers, like you were saying, Asamoah being small, but he can really run them down, with running backs or wide receivers. He can play cornerback, basically. The diverse skill sets of some of these guys, like Daxton Hill, I said this guy can play safety or corner. It's just like these guys are multifaceted, and they're going to make a name for themselves in the league. And the one thing about all these guys, for the most part, is they all tackle very well. I think the only guy we were talking about
Stingley
was Stingley in Utah.
Lloyd. Yeah, Devin Lloyd.
Just not being the impact tackler. It's not like he misses tackles. It's just I
can see him getting ran over in the NFL.
Right? Yeah. He's not going to be the physical. He's not going to be the guy that's like physically dominating games. And that's not. Sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes it does. It depends on what your defensive philosophy is. If you're going to trudge out, the high weight speed, Devin Lloyd's probably not going to be on your. He's got the speed. As far as height weight, you're going to look more towards like a Christian Harris or something like that. And Kobe Dean's probably going to be off your board because he's a tiny guy. But I promise you what, you don't overlook that guy because he's a stud.
Is Roger McCreary your 51st ranked player?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. But I could not put Kobe Bryant on this list. Honestly, McCreary, I was like crying watching him just drop. Like I was like, how am I not? I did not put him on my list. Roger McCreary, I give this guy a lot of love, man. I don't care what his measurables are. This guy's a football player, and honestly, he's probably the 4th best cornerback in this class. If you're just going solely off of tape, you take out the time, the measurables.
And I think he could play nickel or outside. I think he's good on both.
Honestly, man, he just reminds me so much of like Peanut Tillman. I kind of just that's what I see when I watch this guy play. It doesn't really matter what the measurables are to me. This guy he brings the wood in the run game. He's going to be out there every snap of the season. He's just when you highlight that guy in as a starter, I promise you, he's probably not giving that job up. That's Roger McCreary for me. I think that guy's special. As far as what he's going to be, going forward. But we'll get there. I'm sure as things, settle down and, we really keep going back and watching these games, I'm sure these boards are going to change. Combines are going to change things. And
we're definitely going to be shifting things around. Is that it?
I think that's pretty much it for me, man. Like I said, I mean, the quarterback thing, I think along with Howe and the Ritters, there's just no consensus number one. I think there will be a number one. It looks like Malik Willis right now because of how electric he was with his legs. And I think he did show that he can start to progress in certain facets of his game through the week of Senior Bowl practices, watching him practice. I think that's why Malik Willis is getting a lot of the hype right now. He definitely has the highest ceiling. I think that's what matters when you look at all these young quarterbacks having success. I think that's the flavor right now. I think the main thing I do want to say, man, is as I was watching the season, man, like, and the reason Corral is the first guy on my list is Corral's not getting the recency bias right now. But the one player that I kept coming back to for all the things that I was like basically giving this guy a pass on or giving this guy a pass on, it's like I like all these guys. I really do. I'm not in love with any of them. But the one guy that I had, before the season started, I was like, dude, I think Matt Corral is going to be the one that might fall on his face. And like he was the one that did not fall on his face. And honestly, like as the season went on, like I just kept watching this running back get hurt and this wide receiver get hurt, this wide receiver get hurt, this offensive lineman get hurt. And it's like the more players got hurt, the more Matt Corral did. And the more Matt Corral was taking a beating. And the better he even just played. Like honestly, man, like that's a guy I can go to war with. I think Matt Corral is getting a little slept on right now because of the injury and because of his slightness and all these things, man. But when I think about the things that get teams to believe in their quarterback, I think you can say whatever about Kyler Murray being in the bathroom talking to his girl during halftime. Like leaders lead,
Yeah.
and certain people get guys to rally behind him. I think Joe Burrow is the latest of just, that's the difference, man. Like, that is the difference.
Yeah, a lot of quarterback scouting comes in between what's in between their ears.
Right. And I just, like, when I look at Matt Corral, I can see Ole Miss get flat at times. And that's not something I knock a quarterback on. Like, dude, like, teams are flat. Momentum changes in a game. It can be on the offensive side. It can be on the defensive side. But whatever it is, it affects the whole team. And the team that I saw from the quarterback position turn it around the most through whatever good moments or bad moments, he seems pretty damn level for a guy that's kind of as fiery as he is like the energy that he gives off. Like, he's pretty level in that regard. Like, he's not always, like, he's not overhyped. But it's like, dude, when his team is struggling, man, he's always the guy that I see on the sideline, like, tapping guys up and, like we got this. And, like, I honestly think he elevated Ole Miss's roster. Like, when I look at Ole Miss's roster, man, I do not have, like, he's the guy. He's the guy on this list, on the Ole Miss roster. Like, and then when I think about these other guys and, like, the guys that they've played with in their career, man, like, Matt Corral, if I had to just make a blind bet, I think would be the guy. If I just had to make a bet, I think as you can tell, they're all within 10 picks of each other. I mean, like, they're all very evenly, like, they all have something. If there was one guy that it would not be surprising to me to be either the worst or the best, it's Matt Corral.
I agree. I think he has probably.
I just could see him getting hurt and just never even panning out. But it's like, dude, like, and on the other side of that it's just like, dude, like, I just see a guy that's probably going to outwork every other guy. Like, Like, Matt Corral, just, for whatever you look at him and think, man, honestly, man, when I watch his game, I just see a guy that probably gets to work earlier than everybody else and leaves a little bit later than everybody else and actually watches a little bit of film. Because he incorporates things in that offense that aren't really part of that offense, man. That offense is realistically, man, it's like run and shoot, man, out there. And, like, honestly, I see him make these leveled throws over like a linebacker in front of a safety, and it's just like, that's not really a part of what Kiffin does on that offense. So I think he has incorporated things that matter, that translate to the pro game. And I think Matt Corral is, if he does get to work out at the combine, or like when we start to hear reports after the combine, I think that's going to be the guy. Like, if I had to just say something about it, man, I just, like, his numbers aren't gaudy, like for all the quarterback gaudy numbers that you see in the last, couple of years, the Strouds of the world and the Youngs, these Heisman Trophy candidates, man. Like, you look at Corral's numbers, they aren't all there, but, like, dude, like, it's not all numbers.
No, definitely not. I mean, if it was all numbers, Bailey Zappi would be the number one pick on the draft.
Yes, he would. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the one thing I wanted to close with. I mean, was just somebody that I really didn't talk. I mean, there are quarterbacks on this list, and I mean, the NFL is such a quarterback-driven league. It's just like, if you want to make a safe pick an offensive tackle, cornerback, or wide receiver early. Honestly, I think cornerback just goes through this whole draft. Same with edge. At the top end of this draft, there's some really good interior offensive linemen and defensive linemen. I think there's a little bit of a tier gap once you get past some of these certain names, but they are definitely stockpiled through the draft. And then realistically, I just want you to know that Kyle Hamilton is a stud. Since we didn't really talk about him.
We didn't really, but if you want to hear Kyle Hamilton, you can just listen to someone on NFL Network do a mock draft. That's what they're going to talk about.
If you have a safety rating number one and you actually factor in positional value into your ranking, then that says something.
Kyle Hamilton covers the flats better than any player I've seen in college football.
He'll lay the wood.
Instinctual.
Can do everything.
Really, he's really good.
He's going to be a transcendent safety, and that's rare. Like there's not a bunch of safety guys that come out at that position.
I don't think he's going to go first overall, so I think a team's going to get a really good value.
Honestly, I think he's like basically what we had last year with our top rated player being a tight end. With Kyle Pitts went 8. I could see Kyle Hamilton anywhere from 4 to 10. And if he falls out of 10, people are just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes past 10,
I mean, if I'm watching it, I'm scooping him up.
Silly season.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, if he definitely shouldn't go past 11.
No.
All right.
I think
thank you for listening, everybody.
All right. Peace.
Later.